Hey, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Notes from the Edge. I am your host, Lacy, and this is the place we have the conversations that we should have been having all along. Guess what? You ain't talking about it, so we're gonna. And today we have my new friend and special guest back for round two. We have James Lang here with us, who has an amazing bio. He is the co-founder and managing partner of OverLang Ventures Partners, where he helps founders and business leaders build companies that grow sustainably by aligning three essential pillars: growth, operations, and technology. And James never forgets about the humans involved in all of that. Before founding Overlang, James served as chief operating officer at a MedTech company, helping generate more than $20 million in direct to consumer revenue while leading a global team of more than 60 people. Following a health crisis, James redefined his entire philosophy of leadership, choosing long-term sustainability and over constant hustle. And we're down for that. Who wants to keep hustling? Today, he helps organizations make better decisions, build healthier companies. Who doesn't want that? And leverage technology, including AI, as a tool among many other pieces of their entire strategy. And today we're going to talk about what's next, signal versus noise. Where's your next $100 coming from? James, my friend, welcome back to Notes from the Edge. How are you today, my friend?
Good. Thank you for having me for the second show. I'm surprised I didn't manage to scare you off the first time. Let's see if we can do it this time.
No, I enjoyed it so much, and I think you're going to help so many people. I think often when we have those major transformations and transitions, it's when we can really grab other people in those major transitions and transformational moments and help them have an easier ride than we did with people that have the answers from going through it the hard way. So I love this topic. You often ask leaders one very deceptively simple question: where's your next $100 coming from? Right? And at this one, I was like, wait a minute, where's my next $100 coming from? So why is this such a powerful framework to cut through the complexity? And what does it reveal about what businesses should prioritize?
Yeah. So when I'm sitting with people who they have this amazing background in their space, they're successful, but they're like looking to kick it up to the next level.
Yeah.
Generally those people, they've started to systemize things. They're starting to work on the business instead of in the business and all the other little, anecdotes floating around out there. But the thing that they often lose sight of is where's your next couple dollars coming from? $100, $1,000, $1,000,000. I don't care what the number is. I just care what is
Where's
your
the
source
money?
for that.
Yeah.
And what's great about that is it's so easy to kind of eat your own BS, right? And lie to yourself and tell yourself that, all these grandiose ideas of what you're building, we're going to change the world and do all these things, right? And all of that's great. And I hope that's true. But if you've lost focus on where the next $100 is coming from, you are no longer serving your customer, you're serving yourself and the idea of what you want to build versus what the market is telling you. So I love that question for so many reasons. It frames the conversation in a really helpful way, but it also gets us back down to reality and gets our head out of the clouds.
Yeah, reality is a good place to live. Some days, some days, some days I choose not to, but hey, that's my jam. That's my jam when it comes to business always. So, you also talk signal versus noise in business, though, not just in our world, but between AI and social media and nonstop notifications and endless business advice. You said it. There's so many of these little things floating around, and which ones do you cling to and which ones do you not? How the heck can leaders decide what to listen to?
So if I had to choose one thing that your audience kind of takes away from this conversation is reflect on this sentence, which is how do I dial in the ratio of signal to noise within the context of weeks, quarters, and years, and actually highlight those decision points that transform impact into legacy. So really fancy sounding sentence, but maybe a run on. but we already know we invent our own words here, so we're okay with that.
Guys, we were making up words before you came on. We do that in here.
Absolutely. So, besides, all the things you taught me about Klingon before the show, I really appreciate that. No, I'm kidding.
Stop it. So, that was your conversation before.
I'm kidding. But if people are able to think about, okay, all of these notifications are hitting my phone, all of these emails are in my inbox unread, all of these analytics dashboards that we have, we're drowning in analytics these days. We have Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and that's just the Googles. Then you get into the HubSpots and all the other tools that people utilize. And then now with AI, we have the ability to build our own dashboards. And so what I like to kind of frame the conversation for what we're going to talk about is, how do we filter out all the noise, actually identify the signals that matter, which is a lot harder than it sounds. That's the hard step, is which signals actually matter. And then once you know, the other signals that you thought mattered become part of the noise, and that's fine. They can fade into the background, but you can focus on the signals that actually matter. And so the beautiful part of what AI has given us, and what we've really focused on building out at OverLang, is this business owner's operating system. I call it, for the entrepreneur, it's brain OS. How does your brain work? For the business, it's business OS. How does your operating system at work as a team work? But all of those things need to be fed information that's up to date, that's within solid context, and actually helps you move the needle. Are we seeing green or are we seeing red? What's how many up arrows or green arrows do we have across our dashboard? Well, what dashboard are we looking at? So again, to bring it back to the world of AI, we have these amazing tools. Like, I'm a huge fan of Lovable, which is a vibe coding platform, which is almost an insult to call it that. It's so much more functional than that. But it's this amazing platform where you can really sit down and think through a prompt and build out a tool that then connects into all the other things we're talking about. So if you're talking about your marketing, you can have it plug into your the back end of X and all the feeds there. So all these API calls that go out and gather information from other tools, it can not only grab that information for you, but then it can present it in a way that's helpful. And so I like to talk about, and I often give credit to Jeff Woods, who's an amazing author. He wrote The AI-Driven Business Leader. I think we might have touched on that in our previous conversation.
A little bit.
But yeah, to build off of that, so part 2 of that conversation is CRIT, C-R-I-T. So when you're thinking about how you prompt, and again, think of AI, I think people get this wrong. People think of HAL or, the talking computer or whatever. They think that's AI, and it's not. Artificial intelligence is much more easily defined, in my opinion, as a translator. It brings us closer to the thing. It used to be you had to have a 4-year degree in computer science, learn all these different coding languages to even do the most basic of things. Now you have a translator that you can tell the AI platform with a prompt what you want it to do, and it worries about the 4-year degree and the 15 different coding languages and which APIs are best and how to manage bandwidth, all these things that are important, but you don't have to really think about anymore, because it's like we've been given the microwave frozen dinner. We don't have to have the whole kitchen and the whole kitchen staff and the sommelier and all that. We still want that, obviously, but
yes.
For the rest of us,
it's comfort food. I was raised on microwave frozen dinners. So
absolutely. But that's the equivalent now of, like, how easy was it to pop something in the microwave? You could be 10 years old and you could make a decent meal, without having to cook and do all the steps and all the cleanup and all the other stuff. So that's what AI gives us, is it's the microwave meal of coding and development. And so what is CRIT? So Jeff Woods, again, AI-driven leader, amazing book. But what he's talking about now, and I try to keep up with him because he's just a really decent dude, but also somebody who actually eats his own dog food. So CRIT is a way of formatting your prompts. So a prompt, for anyone that's not familiar by now, when you go to Google, you used to prompt Google with a question or a series of things that you wanted information on. So when you did searches, you were prompting Google. Well, prompting has expanded now, where on Google it was a couple sentences, maybe a couple words even. Now prompting is a paragraph or more. And
Yeah.
so crit is a framework that you can use where, and I literally will write this out into Perplexity, which is my tool of choice. But I'll write CRIT on 4 different lines. And then I'll think out, okay, what is the context for what I'm asking? What role, the R, does the AI need to play in order to do this? What do I want it to interview me on as it completes this task? And how do I summarize the task? So it's context, role, interview, task, or crit. And so if you can answer those 4 fundamental pieces, I think it's 4. Yep, it's 4. Sorry, I'm better with words than I am with math. But if you can make sure that your prompt has all 4 of those elements, you're going to get a much better response and a much better output with a lot less token usage. Because now we have to think about how efficient is my prompting. Because if you ask one task to be completed, but it takes 500 messages back and forth to be completed, you're going to have spent the equivalent of 500 tasks in terms of token costs to complete your one thing. And we want to do the opposite. We want to get the value of 500 individual tasks from one prompt or one token. So
Oh,
that's
that's
oversimplifying,
perfect.
but it's an
Yeah.
important way to look at it.
Yeah.
So for crit, the really powerful one is the I, which is interview. So as you're going through and you're filling out your prompt, the context is I want you to build a dashboard that takes into account all of my different analytical dashboards around marketing, our ROAS, our return on advertising, all those different things. So that's the context. The role that I want you to do is you are an expert marketer and data analyst, and your job is to help me identify all of the different things, the different elements that are important for me to pay attention to, and then synthesize that in a way that I can easily take a glance and know how we're doing. And if things aren't going well, I can drill down into understanding what elements are underperforming. And then interview, I, is my favorite part of this, which is you tell it after I hit enter, your job is to ask me 5 questions about this task, one at a time. And then you say, what is the task? Which the task in this case is you perfectly describe it, because if you perfectly describe something to someone, you're more likely to get what you want.
Yes.
So this dashboard has 4 primary numbers. It has tabs that I can drill down and actually see the raw information. There's an audit trail, so I can see where the information came from and where it was time-stamped, and when the information showed up. All of these different things. So at the front, I want it to be very simple, but I want it to be very deep internally that I can drill down and see really important things. So now you've filled out crit. It's got all the elements there. You hit enter. Now AI is going to ask you a follow-up question, one at a time. And those 5 questions are the game changer, because those 5 questions are going to come from its perspective, not your perspective. And I can think about a prompt all day long and finally sit down and write it out. I still can't, with any reasonable level of accuracy, guess or predict what 5 questions it's going to ask me. And if you're using the voice feature where you just talk back to it, you can kind of brain dump with all 5 of those questions. And so at the end, you get this beautiful output. And, I'll give you an example. I just built one of these tools earlier today. We need it for a project. And the equivalent was, I built out this whole process, and this entire prompt goes and it runs. And it took about 15 minutes for the AI to process the whole prompt and do everything it needed to do. But what was beautiful is if I had spent 15 minutes just telling it one piece at a time of the instructions and asking it questions and answering questions just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, if I had spent 15 minutes doing that, I would have spent at least 20 to even 100 credits, which credits and tokens are not cheap. So it's worth paying attention to. Well, this thing ran for 15 minutes. It only cost me 12 tokens total. And it did something way beyond what I expected. And at that point, you go from, okay, I'm able to efficiently tell it what I need. I'm able to let it do the cooking and all the back and forth. I can go do something else for 15 minutes. I can come back. And when it's done, I'm not thinking about, oh, gee, I wish I had said this, or, oh, gee, I wish, I mentioned this piece of it. Instead, I'm thinking about, this is amazing. What other tool can I build to supplement this or to add context and attack the data from another angle? So you go from, in the time of an hour spent doing this stuff, you can build something that would have taken a week to a month with a team and everyone going back and forth and all the fun parts of a committee. You get away from all that and you get to finalize product in 15 to 20 minutes. And it's better than something you could have asked for in a 30 or 45-minute conversation with a team. So that's one huge takeaway that I think people are going to benefit from immediately after this conversation, of course, in your prompting. But more importantly, and we should dive into a little bit, how the landscape's changing in terms of how we pay for AI, all these API calls, all the different token costs. That's changing pretty quickly, and it's because the VC money is starting to dry up, at least for the big players. They're starting to run a little bit empty on their funds. So now they're coming to their customer base, and it's like the drug dealer. They got you hooked on the drugs. Now they're going to make you really pay for it as you buy your next hit. And
yeah,
that's
listen
where we're
to
at.
James about those prompts, guys. Remember
It
that.
makes a difference for sure.
Well, and then you're very clear about what you want and need, and then you get new information that you didn't even think that you wanted or needed, and then you have very clear next steps in 15 minutes times, rather than back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It just streamlines. I love streamlining systems and processes, and it just streamlines the process. But yeah, you're right. When they start coming for their funds from us, we will absolutely remember that. In fact, we might even go back in the description and put that in here, and find the link for the book that you're talking about, so our listeners can enjoy that book and learn from it, because it seems to have really helped you a great deal too. So that is what you guys do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Help people determine what is signal and what is noise, what can be gone, and streamline systems. What's typically your first step? If somebody's like, I really like James, I think I like what they've got rolling. What's your first step when you work with a client?
Yeah, so there's 3 of us on the core team at OverLang, and we each kind of have different areas of the business, right? So I'm more on the operations and marketing side. My buddy Jeff, who's an absolute nerd, makes me look like a lame brain, just figuring this stuff out. 1 + 1 = 2. He's just a whiz. So, he's the data guy and the AI guy, to the point of like building models, doing the things that are pretty advanced.
Nice.
And then Josh, my other friend, he has a really deep background in compliance and logistics. So if you think about what it takes to run a business, you've got marketing to communicate to the market, you've got operations to systemize everything internally, you've got the technology side, we can build out custom solutions or, slap together off the shelf stuff, whatever makes sense. And then you've got compliance to keep you out of jail, because none of us look good in a jumpsuit. And then you've also got logistics, which is incredibly important, because just because you can get people to buy something off your website, well, can you ship it to them? Do you have enough inventory? All of those things. So what I really love about our team, although it's small at the top, we do have a lot of other people that we tag in to help out and systemize when we need to. But the brain trust is just the 3 of us. And so when you ask, like, what do we do? I generally will sit down with someone who, 9 times out of 10 people tell me, man, I really would love to use a team like you, but there's no way I could afford it. And I always laugh, because I say, look, I don't know if you realize this or not. Maybe you haven't listened to all the amazing podcasts I've done here with Lisa, but, I'm not worried about how to pay for lunch tomorrow. I'm more worried about building long-term value and building the kind of partnership that makes us both rich. And more importantly, if you give me the opportunity to look under the hood, okay, just because we got to charge you something, and I want you to have skin in the game, and we tend to value information more when we pay for it. Let's say $500. I'll spend a couple days out of my week, talking with your different team members. We'll do kind of a deep dive into understanding how you do things currently, And then also, what are the things that are causing friction? And believe it or not, $500 is very cheap for this type of conversation, as you know, but
Mm-hmm.
the value is immediate. I mean, I can pull out of that conversation the first couple days. I can pull out of these conversations with your team members what are the things they hate, because they're not going to wake up one day and just call you and say, hey, I hate my job and here's why. So you need that third party
They may
to
know
have
they
that
hate their job, but
conversation.
not know why. Yeah.
Right. And you need to know why, because you want to
Yes.
retain that institutional knowledge. It's super important.
Yes.
So there's value in that right there. But wait, there's more. So, as we have those conversations, we can pull together and understand, okay, here are the things that you could do differently. But also, let's better understand and define your goals. Where's that next $100 coming from? How do we help you get there, and make sure that you not only have the brand voice, the marketing side of things to generate those leads and bring those customers online, but at the same time, do you have the back office support to be able to facilitate and support and service those accounts? So
Yeah.
all of those things are, conversations in and among themselves, but if you put all these things together, what we walk away from is, okay, great, I got $500, so I don't have to worry about lunch for the day after tomorrow either.
That's my
But
next $100. There you go.
exactly. But the beautiful part is now I know, okay, as we talk internally what we want to do, we can build the relationship. That's just the first date. And the first date's always very successful. Our clients always get lucky. And the beautiful part about the second and third date is now when we get together, I'm going to be able to say, these are the things, this is the long list of things I think that, could help you. But, obviously, budget limitations, time limitations, all these things. Here's the 2 or 3 things I would circle. And if you do these things right now, the benefit of doing these 3 things is going to so outweigh the cost and time that you spend that now it's idiot proof. You want to do business with us, because not only will we over deliver on the value on the first date, and we always put out, but on the second date, we're going to ensure that everything you do pays for itself by the third or fourth date. So again, the reason, and I don't know why more consultants don't realize this, and I didn't really set out to build a consultancy, but that's where we are. Combining that with some of our proprietary tech that we build and some of our IP. But the crazy part is, if you figure out how to help your client pay for your services, they're more likely to buy your services. I know it's a novel concept, but that's been our approach, and it's worked marvelously every time. And again, it focuses, it aligns our values so that we're both looking at a long-term profitable relationship for everyone.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, why wouldn't you work on that type of relationship? And if you say you want to build long-term business relationships, this is how you put your money and your time where your mouth is. Put it into the things that actually make a difference, deliver that fast ROI, and then also be able to plan out, what is your next week, your next quarter, your next year? What does that look like? What are the things you want to accomplish? And I always say to our guys, like, look, at the end of the day, if you want to describe what we do, we're every business owner's best friend. We're the person you can turn to get unbiased advice and an outside perspective from people who have actually done it. It's not like we just downloaded a book off of Amazon and, took a course and Tony Robbins really inspired us. So now we got to go out there and sell. It's the opposite. It's, we've been there. Each of us have spent at least a decade in the startup world. And collectively, between the 3 of us, we have about $100 million in revenue that we're responsible for over that period of time. And so not only do we trust each other to have our backs, these are people that, I earned my Eagle Scout rank with, these are people that friendships started over like gaming years ago, and then turned into, when I worked over here, I brought people along for the ride. And so these are people that A, have my back and have yours too by extension, but B, they know their shit. And so when we sit down and talk about what we think is going to make the most sense, it's going to be something that, even if you disagree with 99% of it, the 1% that you agree with, which this never happens, but let's say you only agree with 1%, that's going to be enough of a game changer to move the needle. it just, you can't help but want to do business together from then on out.
Well, and you're funny as hell too. I'm just going to throw that in. So you've got people that have your back and you have fun at the same time. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't beat that. It sounds so simple, such a simple process. Hey, let's just give it a run through and see what you've got to see what we were dealing with. What I also love about it is it's very individualized and customized, and I
Right.
appreciate that. You know, it keeps the human at the forefront of all of it, right?
And it also flattens out the cost of all these things, because if you think about it, what we know is token costs are spiraling like crazy right now. And so tokens are what we pay for those API calls, for all those prompts and everything. So if we know that the cost of tokens are going to go up, what we're doing on our side of the fence is we're buying them in wholesale rates, and then we're forwarding them on to our clients and our partners, so they don't have to pay the retail rates. They can take advantage of our buying power and be able to execute on all the things we talk about in a
Oh,
way
nice.
that's incredibly affordable. So again, like I said, from the
Bonus,
jump,
bonus.
yeah. So if we get along well, it turns into a really good business. If we don't get along well, we're going to know $500 to find out that we're not a good fit. That's the cheapest fit test I've ever taken. So,
Yeah.
either way, we're going to either walk away, as friends, but whether we walk away as partners or just, hey, I learned a lot, but it wasn't the right fit, no big deal. Either way.
You'll have some great information in your hands. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
To
It's the
move
tuition of
forward.
life.
Yeah, there is a tuition to life, isn't there?
Yes.
I don't want it to be as expensive as it used to be. That's the whole goal. That's the
That's
whole
the
goal
goal.
now. Yeah, that is the goal. So, okay, many businesses are
Yeah.
confusing being busy with moving that needle forward or making progress.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the biggest distractions you see when you go in and do kind of a look-see of what's happening as you consult with businesses? What's busy work as opposed to actually making some progress? Because it's
The
noise.
answer is so unique and specific to each one, but I'll try to generalize. So,
Okay.
kind of the trends that I see overall in some organizations, you have meeting fatigue, which is they try to manage through meetings, which is just a bad idea in general, in my opinion. But what I mean by that is they say, well, we need to watch our ad spend. So we'll have a meeting once a week about ad spend. And, oh, we need to watch this, so we better schedule a meeting weekly on this too. And there's some wisdom in that. It can make sense in some circumstances, but what happens in companies with that kind of culture is when people walk into the room, nobody's done the homework ahead of the call, because this is the call where they set aside time to do the homework. And that's not really helpful, right? So,
or you'll be sitting,
yeah.
I will never sit in another meeting that lasts 3 hours because some people just like to talk. And you're like, man, I had this answer 5 minutes. 5 minutes in, yes, right? But I'm not.
Yeah, the classic, this could have been an email.
Yes, yes, yes. I have the answer. If somebody, I could have had it 5 minutes and we're done. Yeah.
So a tactic we use to deal with that is what we'll do is we'll say, look, really glad that everyone's on the call today. We distributed agenda ahead of the call. The things on the agenda are the only things we're going to be talking about today. If you have concerns or other things you wish were on the agenda, hit us up after class. We can talk about it and we can add it to the next call or whatever. But we know from this block of time that we all spend together, we expect to have answers on all of these things, not just did we do our homework and what is our homework. So a lot of those organizations, they have organizational ADD. And so, like I said, they'll pop in these meetings, they'll start talking about 15 other things that weren't on the agenda. And at the end of the day,
3 hours later, you're like tired, fatigued.
Right. And 3 hours later, they haven't dealt with any of the agenda items. And the 15 new things they talked about are not anywhere near a point of completion. It's just been entrepreneurial pornography, basically.
Yes. Yes, I don't miss those. I don't miss those at all. Gotcha. Okay, so and I love this because I use my AI as a tool to support my growth. I without my assistant, I would not be as successful as we are right now, truly, because I'm a solo entrepreneur. So you've said technology should support growth. I love this, not become the strategy itself. So how should leaders think about AI without fearing it or without blindly chasing everything it absolutely says and still keeping humans to the forefront, on the forefront,
So,
on the
so
forefront,
the heart
to
of a
the forefront.
teacher is the answer to that. So you have to approach these things not as, hey, here's a guide, go read it. If you read it, you'll have all the answers. Leave me alone. Those are the butthole consultants that we do run into all the time, who were experts on Bitcoin last week and home flipping the year before that. So, you know, the problem is everyone's running around with the buzzwords, but if all they do is they tell you, yeah, if you just buy this product from me and if you just read this guide, you'll be set. All the answers are in there.
Oh,
Those should be flaring warning signs just going off like crazy in your head of just run away.
yeah. Yeah.
So the heart of a teacher is someone who, in the 36 minutes and 14 seconds, I've had a great time, by the way, that we've been on this call. No, I'm just kidding.
We always do.
But the things that we get into during these conversations, if you have the heart of a teacher, the person you're sitting across from is going to have taught you something. You're going to walk away from that conversation smarter, happier, and more assured about the future than
Well,
you did, before the conversation. And so the heart of a teacher comes in, where if you're afraid of something, it's probably because you don't understand it or you don't know it. And so when I was helping some of my older family members figure out how to use the computer, which was a big part of my life growing up, because I was the nerd in the family. I was the kid who I showed up and everyone's like, "Oh, good, you're here. None of this works."
oh no! So that's how you spent Thanksgiving, hooking up
Yeah, and I was
everybody's
totally
Wi-Fi.
fine with it. Yeah, I was totally fine with it. I'd rather deal with a computer than my crazy uncle. So, worked out fine. But
I'm busy, guys. Have
yeah,
fun.
exactly. I'd love to help with that. Oh, gee whiz. The dishes, yeah, no, I'm updating C Cleaner. Anyways, so, but if you have that opportunity to learn about things in a safe environment. So one of the biggest things I learned is most of the people in my family who were computer not savvy, computer retarded, basically they were amazing people, but the problem was they were afraid that if they pushed the wrong button, the nukes were going to fly out of North Korea and that humanity would be ended as we knew it. So it was that fear of messing up. And I had to explain to them, like, if you hit the wrong button, there's this amazing button called delete or backspace or control Z as a friend to me. Whatever the case may be, there's ways to go back in time. So
Nothing's
unlike,
going to explode, guys.
well, I mean, if you do it right, potentially, but yeah, I mean, the goal is to have
Okay,
fun
we
without
get
causing
technical.
lasting harm. So yeah, it was first understanding that, okay, if I mess up, I can get back to first base. Just because I struck out doesn't mean that I'm done. The game's over. You get a mulligan, and then from there, it was having the curiosity to understand it. So there was a whole conversation I had with one family member that was explaining how a keyboard works, and you think, like, why would anyone be interested in that? Well, she was so concerned about how hard do I hit the key, and did it go, did it work or whatever. She had this anxiety around, like, if I press the J key, will J show up, and oh no, there's too many J's now or whatever. So for her, I explained, like, how it works. There's contact made and you can feel it because it bottoms out. And so if you just commit to making a down and out maneuver, you're not going to have three J's, you're just going to have one, and it's predictable. And then I said, before we do anything else, I want you to take this letter and just, type it out on word processor. And so you got to figure out, like, what is the roadblock? And it can be something so simple
Where's
and
the
stupid,
fear, right?
right?
Where's the fear?
But you get them past that, and all of a sudden now they're testing out other things, they're playing with it. And so by the time you see them for next Thanksgiving, if you play your cards right, you don't see them in between. But if you next Thanksgiving, they're going to have a whole bunch of other things that they've tried and played with that they want to show you and get insights on. And that's when you've broken the log jam. They're not afraid anymore. And at that point, then they can do the monkey see, monkey do. Let me teach you about Google and YouTube and all these amazing things we have. And now with AI, what I like to do is I'll have them create a list of things they want to learn. and then I'll create a prompt for them inside of whatever AI tool they use, and I'll have it with the personality of, you're a professor you're an expert on all these things. Your job is to teach your student, which is the person chatting with them. And this is the thing that I think people are sleeping on, is we have college professors in our pocket. I mean, literally, AI, you can ask it anything, and you can ask a follow-up question. It has the context of the conversation. And if you really want to nerd out, you can ask it to create a syllabus. You're a Harvard professor, you're teaching this class, draft an entire syllabus for me to follow with your guidance so that I can learn about these things and have a Harvard level of understanding. If that's the way you want to look at it. I mean,
Yeah.
the only limitation is your imagination, right?
Yeah. Creativity. Be creative with it too. Don't fear it. Be curious. At least bare minimum, be curious. Start with some curiosity, right?
And that's
Start with
why
some
interview, the
curiosity.
I in crit, is so important, because it going through and asking you those questions is going to give it so much more context and get you outside of your comfort zone and your shell. And you're going to be able to start, delivering a solution that is so much more contextually thought out and specific. And you spend less time going, oh, I didn't like this, can you do this instead? Because
Yeah.
that's mental fatigue. Mental fatigue from AI is real, you
Yeah.
know. And so the less back and forth, I mean, AI is an intern that you hired, except if you do it wrong, that intern's going to be constantly, tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, what about this? Should I do this? What do you think about that? How could this be better? Do you like this? And that's exhausting. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants to answer
So,
all those questions, but I don't
yeah,
want to just swipe by what you said.
sure.
Hired intern, guys, look at it like a hired intern, a tool, right? Something, an assistant, something to help you, not run everything and make sure you're the one doing everything. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And you're right, we have a Harvard level college professor in our pocket at all times. We can educate ourselves, the heart of a teacher, in anything we want to know. So, but what I love is for you guys at Overlang is you guys keep humans first. So talk to me
Mm-hmm.
about that philosophy.
Yeah, so a lot of companies, they fall into kind of two extremes. They're either too poor to implement AI correctly, so they do it wrong out of
Okay.
fear,
Okay.
or they have so much money, they're a Fortune 500, that they've built out their own AI division. And both of those extremes have some downsides. But, sanity is somewhere in the middle on the spectrum, right? Um, so what we deal with primarily are companies who, when I sit down with their leadership, I'll ask, like, tell me about your last AI deployment. And they want to sound really smart. So they're like, oh, yes, well, we did this and blah, 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 and whatever.
It's
And
very fancy. Yeah.
it sounds very fancy, lots of big words, big hat, not a lot of cattle, right? So, which is fine. They want
Yes,
to,
those exist. Okay.
yes. So the reality, though, is you're going to get a good understanding of what are the things that are important to them. What do they think sound smart? And then from there in that conversation, you'll always hear a horror story. And one of the horror stories, the same thing we hear over and over and over again, is, I was nervous about AI. I thought our competitors were using AI. So I went out and found one of these butthole consultants who was an expert on Bitcoin last week, but they're an expert in AI now, they promise. And, we bought these tools and resources from them. And the problem is, when you onboard a new tool or a new system, it doesn't have to be AI. This applies to anything. But if you onboard the wrong tool and you have to start building and organizing your company around the tool rather than
Oh,
utilizing the tool where it makes sense,
yeah.
things happen.
That could get expensive.
It gets very expensive. And not only is it expensive on the front end, because if I told you that I have a unicorn in the trailer out back and it, farts rainbows, how much would you be willing to pay me for that?
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
if
a
you
lot.
believe me, a lot. And so, to anyone listening, if you believe that, my number is no. But at the end of the day, they end up spending a huge amount of money on
Oh,
something that's barely what they thought it was.
or what they
And
need.
now it's the sunk cost fallacy, right? They think, well, we
Oh,
spent so much money on this,
we got
we
to
need to
use it.
use it. So
Hmm.
here's what happens. They start dropping the ball for their clients, their customers. They have a worse experience because of this. And then the other thing is their top performers, their best people, they start updating their resumes because they've been reading all the headlines for months and years now of AI is coming for your job. Well, now they see this really crappy rollout, and now you're asking the organization
That they
to
weren't
craft
involved in. Yeah.
right. And now they're being asked to mold themselves to the AI. Screw your experience. Be a team player. You got to use the AI tool. And so they start updating their resume because they assume they're going to get replaced. So now
Oh,
you've pissed off your customers. You've potentially lost your top players. And
wow.
so it's a really bad place to end up. And so thankfully, a lot of times we can rescue these people from going down that path if they talk to us early enough. And I'll
Yeah.
talk to anyone. I've had a few of your listeners reach out.
Yay.
Some of them were relatively normal, and no, it
I'm
was great.
surprised.
Um,
We love you guys. We love you guys.
but I love the conversations because everyone's coming out from a different place, and it's fun to play the game of like, how do I understand more concretely where you're at, and how
Yeah.
do I help you? And so
Yeah.
for a few of the people, we're able to kind of intervene and say, look, this is not a good idea. Here's 5 reasons
Don't
why.
continue it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
hit
worth
pause. It doesn't
stopping now.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll hit pause. It doesn't mean you have to walk away from it, but before we hit the accelerator and start, around this blind curve, let's get some more information. Maybe get out of the vehicle and go walk around the curve and see what it looks like.
Let's go on a nature
So,
trail, guys.
yeah, it'll be great. So again, the extremes are you've lost your top players, you've lost your clients. The more often scenario is these things have started to happen and they're starting to fester. But the beautiful thing is I have the ultimate cheat code in that conversation, which is I know what crappy idea was given to you before,
Mhm.
and I know how much you spent. And now I get to be Santa Claus and say, look, not only can we solve this problem for you, but it's going to cost you a fraction of what you're going to spend on the other thing because we're not marking things up 200 times like the other guys are because they're looking
Yeah.
to make a quick buck. They're not looking for the long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So,
The
uh,
human aspect. That's the
right.
human aspect is the long-term relationship.
Well, and if part of the AI rollout, whatever you want to call it, and if someone comes in and says we need to do an AI rollout, run. That's not the point. The point is like we need to understand your business and help figure out how to help.
Yeah.
And AI is the right tool for some things. It's also really the wrong tool for some other things. And so if you misapply it, you're going to have an outcome that's pretty bad. And so again, I go back to we need to get to know each other. We need to, whatever. I mean, $400, whatever you can justify in your head, right? I'm not worried about how much you pay me on the front side because I know it's the start of a long-term relationship. I know we're both can make a lot of money. So I'd
And
rather
you
just
want
give
to
me the
get in there
opportunity to
and
look under
figure
the
out how
hood.
to help. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love that. I love that.
So, yeah.
So yeah, so get curious about it, and guys, if you feel stuck, reach out to James. Seriously. So James, I want to talk about your philosophy since your health crisis because it
Okay.
certainly shifted.
Sure.
Um, your definition of success changed
Hmm.
dramatically.
Sure.
How has that shaped you now in this new business, in how you approach um your client, not only your clients, but approach yourself every day? What did that transformation transition pivot do for you, and how are your clients going to benefit from it?
Well, number one, going from running a fairly large organization and dealing with millions of dollars a month in revenue, um, that was exciting, but it wasn't very fulfilling. And
Mhm.
it was because we were building somebody else's dream, and we were making money along the way, so we didn't really mind that much, right? So it's like, okay, I'll give up chunks of my life to cash in and be able to retire early. That's really cool, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of that approach. But you have to think about it in the context of how much time you have left. And so when the expiration date on your milk carton becomes a little bit less clear, a little bit fuzzy, and you just don't know, you start to think about how you spend your time a lot more. And one of these proverbs from some smart Asian guy from back in the history was like, he who plants a tree from which the shade he'll never experience, that's the purest version of love, is plant the tree that will grow up way after you're gone, and shade the space for somebody else who comes after you. And there's a lot of that in how I think about things now. So like for me, my number one goal is I want to make sure the people I care about, so the people that I left behind at that other company who things did not go well after I left, and not my fault, but is what it is. My goal is to go back and provide an option to all of those people of, hey, we've got a really cool opportunity here where not only can you pay your bills, but also you can really focus on taking all the things that we know you're great at because we've worked together before, and you can put time into projects you care about and have equity in these things, on the things that you work on. So that whole system, the entire system of OverLang and how it's built as a company, how it's structured, is built around that. So I want to take care of the people that deserve better than what they experienced after I left with the new ownership. But also, I want to make sure that the people I care about, that I love, no matter what, I'll probably be here 100 years from now. But if I'm not, for whatever reason, the people I care about, they don't have to worry about money. So what does that mean? Well, now you're thinking about how do you invest your time and energy and finances in a way that creates, for lack of a better term, a trust fund of sorts that has the beneficiaries that you get to pick and that you get to take care of. And so for me, it's like, I'm not really focused on like, hey, how do I get that big house, or how do I get the new Ferrari or whatever. I mean, I've always been a Honda guy myself, but
I'm a Honda girl too. I wrecked my Honda. I miss that thing.
Yeah, no, the NSX is a very fun Acura sports car. I had a lot of fun with that. But the end of the day, it's like, how do I leave a legacy? And so regardless of whether I'm here or not, I know that everything I'm doing is aligned towards that. But the other really important takeaway, when you don't have control over your health and how you feel and how productive you're going to be day to day, you start to really anchor your sense of self and your sense of the journey around the phrase, for me at least, is progress is success. That literally is what I wrote on the front of my journal. So I journal every day. And so I think about, okay, here's the progress we made. And the fact that progress was made, that's success. And for our clients, what that translates into is when we work together, we're not going to be beating anybody up over the fact that, like, hey, you could have done a lot more with these 2 weeks that you spent on this project or whatever. The question is, are we 1% or better, stronger, better off today than we were yesterday? And if the answer is yes, we're moving in the right direction.
That's
and so
it.
what I found, organizationally, if you can embrace that as an organization, all of a sudden, people aren't worried about these crazy goals of, I'm going to 10x everything in 2 weeks or whatever.
And then they're not stressed and they're not pressured, and they feel celebratory when they do make that 1%. It's it's a game-changing philosophy. Well, James, and I think you're being slightly humble in this. I think also what you're helping companies do is build their own legacy as well. I think you're wanting to pass that on. I mean, you're thinking about legacy for not only your own company, but you're really invested in helping other people build their legacies too.
And legacy isn't something that has to be off in the distant future. So part of the legacy that we're focused on is, when we have, so there's a reason if you go to our website, we have this pod of dolphins in the background. We grew up in Virginia Beach, so, dolphins are a big deal out there. It's like the city mascot. There's all these like dolphin sculptures out there. Anyways, but the philosophy runs a little bit deeper for us. And it's a great conversation that we get to have with new clients is, we explain, to us, there's sharks and there's dolphins. And right now, there's a lot of sharks running around and they're taking advantage of people because, it's easy to pick off one or two members of the herd. Uh, it's much more difficult to take on a well-organized group of good people. And so to
Mhm.
us, our pod of dolphins is not only the team we have internally, but all the businesses we work with, we network together. We encourage them, we have these mastermind sessions where we'll get together and, talk about what's working in our business, what's not working, across multiple industries. And so, you get access to not only like, hey, we can work specifically on your business, but we're also going to give you access to a network of people. And we're very serious when we pick clients. We really do look at their ethics, their values, their long-term vision. And if it's not compatible with ours, that's okay. We'll still give you a ton of great insights to go run with. But if you make it into our inner sanctum, so to speak, of these mastermind calls where we bring together these different owners who share our values, the ability to, kind of throw things at the wall and think about what makes sense, but also chances are somebody else in the room has already had that problem that you're trying to solve.
Oh, I
And
love it.
yeah,
Yes.
and on
Yeah.
top of that, if they don't know how to solve the problem themselves, collectively as a group, as a pod, we probably know who can, even if they're
Oh,
somebody we have to reach out to. So the
what a
network's
great
huge.
resource. Yeah, what a
Yep.
great resource. Well, James, we are at 51 minutes, my friend. We could talk for hours. So here's what I'd love to do. I'd love
Yeah.
to, some of you guys I'm making regular, so I'd love for you to cycle back next month. I love what you guys are doing in your company. I'm so glad people have already reached out to you.
Yeah.
If somebody does want to reach out to you just for that look under the hood offering, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so it's really easy. On LinkedIn, I'm James Lang, Lang. And so if you just go linkedin.com/James Lang, all one word, that's me. And then on X, it's at James Lang. So, you might be picking up on a pattern here, but really easy to get a hold of me, just at James Lang or /James Lang. And then our website, if you want to see, play around with some of the new stuff that we've got. We actually just launched some new technology earlier this week. We've got some more coming online next
Congrats.
week. Thank you. It's Over, like over the hill. OverLang, Lang, my last name. So overlang.com. And like I said, feel free to reach out. I'm not worried about how much money you can pay me. I'm more worried about, do we share the values? Do we have an opportunity to collaborate and do something cool together? And that's worked really well for us. We have some really cool stuff cooking.
Cool stuff cooking. I love to hear it, my friend. All right. We're going to close out. You've already answered one of our questions that we usually close out with. We're going to have you back next month for another topic. If you'd be willing to come on
Sure.
while we're hot, because we're hot. So we'll get it while it's hot. All right. Question to close out with for you. What do you wish we were having more conversations about? What are we not talking about that we need to be?
I think authenticity is something that
Cool.
we lose sight of. We're so focused on the hustle and what's our brand voice and how do we communicate how amazing we are in a crowded market with a lot of people yelling and separating that signal from the noise. I think authenticity goes a long way. And authenticity is something where people can see it, they understand it. It's not something you have to explain to people.
They just
Um,
know it. They just feel it. Yeah.
right. And so in a
Yeah.
conversation with somebody new, if you can't explain two or three things that you screwed up or opportunities that you wish you knew back then or whatever, you're probably not being authentic. You're probably trying to put up a front. And I've
Yeah.
just found in life that there's times for that. There's times when you need to sell yourself. When you're in the rat race trying to get the next promotion, I get it. Been there, done that. But when you're trying to build long-term business relationships, authenticity goes a lot further.
I love it. I love it, my friend. Well,
Yeah,
friends, we're going to put those links right down here, clickable for you. So you don't even have to write that down if you want to find James to have them possibly do some work to help you out. And as always, we're going to close out with the same question that we usually ask you guys. What are you performing in order to survive? And what might putting that role mask or performance, I don't know, maybe be authentic, what might that do to lighten your load and make your days just a little bit better? And I'm your host, Lisa Lacy, here with my guest, James Lang. When you find the answer, we will see you at the edge. James, we could have talked for hours. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.